Hi everyone, Kris from Stone Age Gamer here, and welcome back to Stone Age Countdown. Now, one of my favorite things in the history of video games is watching video games evolve. And video game franchises that start small and then get bigger and bigger as technology advances, well, that is just incredibly cool to look at. But if you look at the library of the Sega Genesis, you think Streets of Rage, you think Sonic the Hedgehog, you think Toe Jam and Earl, those kinds of cool things, but what about the ones that didn't get follow-ups? Why are there so many games on the Genesis that seemed like they were off to a great start that just didn't go anywhere? Well, I've decided to take a look at the Genesis library and give you my top 5 games that should have gotten sequels on the Sega Genesis.
Number 5. Alicia Dragoon. While it's true its name didn't exactly roll off the tongue, I'd argue its box art more than makes up for that. Alicia Dragoon may not be an absolute masterpiece by today's standards, but it had a super cool concept that was ripe for evolution. You play as this woman who can shoot lightning out of her hands. As an arcade-style platformer game, that would have been enough, but there's this whole other dragon component that brings it to the next level. You have a series of dragon friends who can follow you around and help you out. You can swap them out on the fly, which adds a fun element of strategy to the proceedings. It's got killer music too. It didn't release against any crazy competition at the time, it just kind of fizzled for no discernible reason, and it bewilders me. Alicia Dragoon could have been something truly cool. Number 4. General Chaos. Like Alicia Dragoon, General Chaos wasn't exactly a sales juggernaut, but it was certainly around. Most Genesis owners gave this a rental, or at least know someone who had it at one point or another. It's just such a fun game, and it had the weight of Electronic Arts behind it too. There was actually a Kickstarter launched a few years back from the game's original creator to see if they could get a proper sequel made, but it missed the mark by a pretty wide margin. Which is unfortunate, because one of the original game's biggest drawbacks was its low frame rate thanks to it being on old hardware. I will never understand why this game never blew up. Number 3. Wristar. A bright, colorful character platformer with cool mechanics, great character design, awesome music, and plays nothing like Sonic? How did this not take off? It reviewed well, and its existing cult following loves singing its praises whenever they get the chance to because, well, the game's pretty dang good. It gets re-released all the time these days, but back when it launched, it seemed like it kinda just came and went with very little fanfare, which is all manner of confusing. The 16-bit era was custom built for mascot platformers, and in a world where the likes of Arrow the Acrobat and Bubsy the Bobcat got official follow-ups, seeing poor Wristar relegated to one single game is nothing short of a tragedy. This could have and should have been Sega's Kirby, a secondary platforming franchise that evolved in tandem with Sonic. Oh well. Number 2. Kid Chameleon. Look, I'm not even that big a fan of Kid Chameleon, but I remember this game being everywhere back in its day. Everyone who owned a Genesis had some interaction with this game at one point or another, and its concept, a kid who puts on various masks to give him power sets based on popular video game archetypes, has so much potential, it's crazy. Video games keep getting made, so there's a limitless pool of new genres and styles to constantly pull from. Kid Chameleon is even a cool name. Come on, Sega, this game could have had incredible growth to go alongside the industry it was created for. How did you let this one go like that? Number 1. Comix Zone. How, in the name of all that is awesome, did Comix Zone not turn into a bigger franchise? How has it not been revived by now? Comic book movies were at an all-time high in terms of popularity just a few years ago, and as such, comic books had a ton of visibility that they hadn't had since the 90s. Yet here we are, stuck with Sketch Turner's single outing as the one and only window into this fantastic world of interactive comic books. Can you imagine what they could do with this concept with modern technology? It's nuts! Playing a game that literally takes place in the pages of a comic book is such a great idea, and this game only scratches the surface of its potential. Can you imagine if each level was a different issue of the comic book and different artists were responsible so the art direction kept changing from stage to stage? Look, this game's insanely difficult, but that didn't stop it from selling pretty well, and Sega's been putting it on various compilations for decades. Comix Zone should have been huge, and it's positively baffling that its legacy is what it is.
Now I know there are plenty more Sega Genesis games that were one-shots that really should have been multi-shots. They should have been spread guns throughout the history of video games. But alas, for whatever reason, be it rights or maybe they didn't sell well enough at the time, who knows? Sega's a strange company. I can't pretend to understand the reasoning behind most of the things that they've done. Either way, the games on this list, especially Comix Zone, I have no idea. I'm completely mystified as to why these games stopped at one entry instead of turning into wonderful, beloved, long-term franchises. But alas, it is what it is. History is history, and who knows what the future holds. Maybe Sega's gonna dig these old titles up and make new ones in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here today, please follow, comment, like, subscribe, and let us know down in the comments what Sega Genesis games do you think should have turned into massive franchises? What Sega Genesis games got like one sequel and then should have been 30? Who knows? I love Sega games, and I love hearing from everybody about what Sega games I probably missed, because I know there's a ton of great games on that system that I haven't played. Anyway, thanks again for watching. On behalf of all of us here at Stone Age Gamer, keep playing games.